Till now, we have discussed the attributes of India as a mixed economy as well as a dualistic economy. Now is the time for us to discuss India as a developing economy. So, just to give you an idea about what is the level of development across the world, this particular figure which has been shown on the left of your screen, this actually divides the world into three different categories based on the level of development. If you look at it, the blue color is denoting the developed countries, and you can have a look that most of the North America except for Mexico, which means USA as well as Canada, then the western part of the Europe, then the eastern part of Asia, which is basically Japan, and then Australia as well as New Zealand. So these are the parts of the world which are considered to be developed. These are the developed countries in the world as of now. And then if you look at the yellow colored areas, you would find out that Mexico in North America, and then the whole of the South America, then parts of African continent, and almost the whole of Asia, and the current Russia, which is basically a European country. So these are the areas which are considered to be developing economies. These are the countries which are considered to be developing economies. You can look at the red colored portions in the map, and you will find that most of the Africa is among those parts of the world which are least developed. So the red portions basically denote the least developed countries. So most of these least developed countries are to be found in Africa and part of Southeast Asia, which includes Myanmar, Burma. So this is how we have differential level of development in different economies of the world. As far as the case of India is considered, India is considered to be a developing economy, and in many scholarly literature you would also find the reference to India as an emerging economy, because India is among those economies along with Brazil, Russia, Indonesia, China, South Africa and South Korea, which are developing at a relatively faster rate. So they are called emerging economies also. So now let us understand why we are terming India as a developing economy and not as a developed or least developed country. So let us look at some of the reasons why India is considered to be a developing economy. The first reason is that the per capita income in India is increasing. Per capita income or per person income, the total income generated in a country divided by the total number of people residing in the country, the total population of the country. This gives you an idea about the per capita income or the per person income. And in India it is steadily increasing, which is an indicator of the level of development of India as an economy and the pace of development in India as an economy. So yes, there has been an increase in per capita income, but this increase has been gradual. And apart from that, you should also understand per capita income, if it increases, does not mean the income of every single individual would increase. It may also happen because the income is increasing for a few people, while for a large section the income levels are stagnant or they are decreasing. So that can also lead to an increase in per capita income, and that is something which is not good for a economy, because that will create a lot of inequity in the society. However, and to an extent in India also, there has been seen a larger increase in the incomes of the richer sections of the society. And if you compare the increase in income of richer sections of the society with the relatively poorer sections of the society, you would find that the richer sections of societies, they have seen a faster increase in their income levels. So that is a cause for concern. Nonetheless, because the per capita income has been increasing, This is one reason why we also term India as a developing economy. Now then, population growth rate in India has been now declining steadily. In fact, in South India, you would find that the population growth rate has declined to very low levels. While in North India, the population growth rate is still high, but there also, which includes states like UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, there also the population growth rate is declining. Now, why does it happen in a developing economy that the population growth rate declines? See, number one reason is, as the economy develops, more and more people work. They have regular employment, and naturally when somebody has regular employment, he postpones his marriage and the birth of children, and naturally this will reduce the birth rates, which will have an impact on the population growth rates. The children are born at a later age. Parents beget children, parents have their children at a later stage just because they are working in various organizations, having gainful employment, and that is why they have less number of children. So this has an impact on the population growth rate. The growth rate also declines. And secondly, in a developing economy, what happens is that the health infrastructure also improves. Initially, when the country is not developed, the health infrastructure is generally poor, and the child mortality rates are very high, death rates are very high. So to compensate for that, parents tend to have more number of children because they feel that some of the children are probable, it's possible for some of the children to die because the death rates are relatively higher. But as the economy starts developing, the health infrastructure improves and the child mortality rates also climb down, the death rates also decrease, and there is no need for the parents to have more children to compensate for those children who are likely to die, because the death rates have decreased, the child mortalities, death of children, that has also decreased. So there is simply no need to compensate for that, and parents start having less number of children and the overall growth rate declines. And this is what is happening in India, and we have seen over the years now, India's population growth rate has been declining steadily, and it is expected that there would be no further increase in India's population beyond 2070. So our population will be at its peak in the year 2070, and after that it will remain stagnant for some time, and then it will start reducing. So basically this attests to the fact that our growth rate is slowly declining. And as I've said, the growth rate have declined at a faster pace in the southern parts of the country, which includes the 5 states of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Again, there is an improvement in the living standards of the citizens, of the people living in a developing economy, and there is a steady improvement in the living standards. I'll give you an example of what has happened through the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Now we know that there are more number of households in villages who have a functioning toilet, an operational toilet in their house. So that is an improvement in standard of living only. So as a country develops, the living standards of the population also improve, and that has been happening with our country also, with India also, and that is why we can also say that India is a developing economy. If you look at the number of mobile subscribers in India, you would find that there are almost 110-20 crore mobile subscribers in India. So naturally, this is one indicator of improving living standards. Now more and more people have access to mobile phones and internet, so they can quickly transmit information, they can obtain information from different parts of the world also, from far and wide, plus they can use the mobile phone for improving their incomes, for their own businesses. So basically what has happened is, over the last 10-15 years, we have been able to provide our people with better communication infrastructure, better communication facilities, and that is why their living standard has improved. They've been able to benefit from improvement in communication infrastructure, and this is an indicator of improving living standards of the citizenry of the citizens. Now, improvement in living standards can also be gauged, GAUGED, observed from the rise in the HDI score. Now, what is the HDI score? Human Development Index score. Now, basically, Human Development Index is what? It is a composite measure of three aspects. The first one is life expectancy, which is basically a measure of how good the health infrastructure is, because if the health infrastructure is good, naturally the life expectancy would be more. Life expectancy is how many years can a normal individual expect to live. As the health services improve, the life expectancy goes on increasing. So in India, the life expectancy has increased gradually over the years. Then the second aspect that we include while calculating the Human Development Index score is education. For education, we take the average years of schooling for the population. So naturally, if the education infrastructure is good quality, if proper facilities for education are available to masses, then naturally the number of years of schooling would increase for the population. People would stay in schools, people would remain in schools or colleges for longer period of time, and that is why average years of schooling is taken as a proxy for education, right? Then we also include the measure of income levels through the per capita income. So basically these three aspects are taken care of. They are included while calculating the composite HDI score. The life expectancy, which is a proxy for health. Education, for that the proxy that we use is the average years of schooling, and then for income we use the per capita income. Based on that we calculate a HDI score, and now we see that over the years India's HDI score has gradually increased, and it is expected to increase even more in future. So this is a testimony to the fact that India is a developing economy. Then in a developing economy there is a decline in predominance of primary sector. Why? Because in an economy which is relatively less developed, they do not have technology to process the output of the primary sector. So if an economy does, let's say if a poor economy, poor country, less developed country may not be having the machines to maybe process the apples into jam. However, if the same country develops, it will have access to technology, and then it will start processing apples into apple jam or maybe apple juice. So the basic thing that I'm trying to communicate to you is that as an economy develops, its reliance on the primary sector decreases, and the secondary and the tertiary sector, that is the manufacturing sector and the services sector, their predominance increases. They start dominating the economic scenario in that particular country. And the same thing has been happening with India as far as the primary sector is concerned. Its predominance has been declining. You have seen that the contribution of primary sector to our national GDP is now much less than what is used to be the case in 1947 when we gained our freedom. So the status of primary sector has been declining in our economy over the years, and we are also seeing a faster growth in manufacturing and services. This is a testimony to the fact that India is a developing economy. Now please understand that as far as India is concerned, yes, the manufacturing sector has grown over the years, but the pace of growth has been much less. However, service sector has grown a lot. In fact, now it contributes almost 60% to India's GDP. So this is again a proof that India is a developing economy. However, if the growth of manufacturing sector is not satisfactory, then it can have its own problem. So what I'm trying to tell you is that yes, as far as India is concerned, there has been growth in manufacturing and service sector, but the growth in service sector has been far more than that in the manufacturing sector. But again, for India, this can be a problematic scenario. Why? Because in manufacturing sector, we have seen in our earlier discussions also, it is more labor intensive generally. So if there is higher growth of manufacturing sector, more number of jobs would be generated than when there's a higher growth in service sector. So of course our manufacturing service sectors have been growing, and service sector has been growing by leaps and bounds at a much faster pace than the manufacturing sector. But ideally we would want in India a faster growth of the manufacturing sector also, because we have to provide jobs to the population which is regularly entering the job market. Almost 2 crore people entering the job market every year. So we have to provide jobs for them also, and we would prefer a higher growth of manufacturing sector than the services sector. And you would recall that we had had this discussion earlier also. So despite all this discussion, we know that there is a faster growth in manufacturing services, which again is an indicator of India being a developing economy. Now, as far as the exports of primary commodities is concerned, it generally declines in a developing economy. Why does it decline? Because as the economy grows, as the economy develops, it starts using technology to process the raw material, that it obtains from the primary sector. For example, as an economy grows, it will have more machines to process the raw iron obtained from the primary sector into a car or into a machine. And so what will it do? It would stop exporting, or it would, at least there would be seen a decrease in the exports of primary commodities, because now they are being processed in the economy, they are processed in-house. So there would be a decline in export of primary commodities because they are now being processed in-house, and so there is simply less availability for exports of these kind of primary commodities. I hope you understand what primary commodities are, the output of the primary sector. So since now you have machines to process the output of the primary sector, let's say output of mining, for example, the output can be the iron that you are able to mine. If you have the technology and machinery to process that iron into a machine, or into some kind of a construction material, or into some kind of a steel bar, then naturally you would have less amount of iron ore left to be exported to other countries, and naturally the export of such primary commodities will decline. And that is what is happening with India over the years. Now you see that India earlier used to be a major exporter of many primary commodities, but now we have started processing these primary commodities in-house, and we have seen a gradual decline in the export of such commodities. Again, as I just mentioned, the processed value-added goods will be available in the economy. As the economy develops, there would be more processing taking place, there would be more value addition taking place, and so the raw materials or the primary commodities which earlier used to be exported to other countries for processing purpose, they would be processed in-house, and the processed or the value added goods would then be exported to other countries. And that is why we'll see a fall in imports and rise in exports. Is this okay? So this is what is going to happen, and this is what has been happening with India. You look at the example of crude oil. We do not have adequate reserves of crude oil. In fact, we only produce 10% of our domestic requirement, 10% of our overall requirement, and we import 90% of our requirement. And out of that amount that we import, we process quite a significant chunk. We refine the crude oil, and the refinery products which are produced after that, for example petrol and diesel and kerosene, they are then exported to so many different countries. Likewise is the case in gems and jewelry sector, wherein we import the primary commodities like the uncut gems, unpolished gems, and then polish them here in our cities of Maharashtra and Gujarat, specifically Mumbai and Surat. And then we further, after doing this particular value addition, we then further export it to various countries. So this is what happens in a developing economy, and this is what is happening here. Less reliance on the primary commodities and more of processing of those primary commodities into finished goods and then exporting them, and that is what is being seen in the Indian economy. Again, in a developing economy, you would find that innovation is always on the rise. There are more number of inventions, more number of patents which will be filed, more number of designs, more number of design patents. So this happens in a developing economy because naturally a developing economy would require a cutting edge technology, it would require access to cutting edge technology, and they would not remain dependent on some other countries to provide them that cutting edge technology. They would be researching and developing that technology on their own, and that is what has been happening in India over the years. And you would find, if you look at the number of patent files by different countries across the world, India ranks among top 5. So we are among the major filers of patent, and patents are filed to get exclusive intellectual property rights over some design or some invention, which means that we are having more and more inventions here in India. We are having more and more number of innovative designs being produced here in India, and we are getting them patented also. So this is a testimony to the fact that India is developing, and we are also spending more and more on research and development. And that is one reason why some of the companies which are here in India, which actually spend a lot on research and development, they are also world leaders. To take a few examples, Mahindra and Mahindra and Ashoka Leyland. So these are the companies who are basically Indian firms, and still they are world leaders because of their considerable expenditure on R&D. So in India also, we have, if you look at the whole country and not just concentrate on a particular company, our R&D expenditure is slowly and gradually increasing, and it is actually resulting into more number of patents that we are filing, more number of innovations that are happening here in India. In fact, India is called the pharmacy of the world. Why? Because the drugs that are basically invented, or let's say discovered in the developed world, we are able to come up with a cheaper version of those drugs. So India is called the pharmacy of the world. So this is the kind of innovation which is prevalent here in India. We can produce the same kind of product at much less prices. You must have heard about the story of Chandrayaan 2, which was a mission that was completed at much less cost than any other country in the world. So the expenditure on that mission was way less than the expenditure that was incurred by other countries who had sent similar missions to moon. So this shows that we are able to develop innovative ways of performing a particular operation at a much cheaper rate, at much lesser cost, much lower cost. And that is why India is known for frugal innovation, frugal engineering. Frugal engineering is when you do the same work using much less resources. So in India, if you look at the cost of heart surgery, India is considered to be also, India is a destination for health tourism. So many people who cannot get themselves operated upon in America or Western Europe and so many other countries, just because the costs are very, very high there, they come to India for purpose of these kind of medical services. They come to India and they get operated upon. In fact, according to one study in India, if you look at the cost of a heart surgery, it is almost 1/80. That is 80 times lower than the cost in USA. So we are known for this kind of frugal innovation, wherein frugal means conjuice. So frugal innovation is wherein we use the resources frugally. Resource use is frugal, less use of resources. resource use में कंजूसी and still being able to produce the same amount of output and the same quality output. So that is what we are known for, and that is why we can say that India, this is another proof that India is a gradually developing economy. Again, when an economy is developing, then naturally there is an increase in inward foreign direct investments. Naturally, people and entities and business firms from different countries would want to invest in a country which is gradually developing. They find such countries attractive because developing economy presents an increase in the market size. So there is a growth in the market size in developing economies, and whenever the economies are developing at a steady and gradual rate, so many investors from across the world want to invest in that particular economy. And if you look at India, the same thing is happening here. We are seeing a gradual increase in inward FDI. So many companies from across the world, they are investing here in India. And in fact, if you look at the inward FDI figures across the world, you would find that India also here figures among the top 5. We figure among the top 5 receivers of inward foreign direct investment. That is again a testimony to the fact that India is a developing economy. And naturally, when all these things happen, what happens is that a country starts having greater say in world affairs. It is considered, naturally, if the economy is developing, it is considered to be a country in which the economy is gradually developing. It is naturally going to be considered as a more powerful country. It is going to be considered an important country, and it would start having greater say in world affairs. It would be consulted whenever some kind of a decision is taken, and the same is the case here in India. If you look at the deliberations at the World Trade Organization, there also you find the same thing happening. Just because of opposition from India, one particular agreement was not signed. That was some 5, 6, 7 years ago in Bali in Indonesia, in a WTO meet. Why? Because India was the only country which was against that particular agreement. So that is the kind of value that is attached to the opinion of our country. So that, again, you might have seen in the recent past, so many heads of the state and heads of the various countries, so many presidents and prime ministers come visiting India. They come and visit India, and they prefer having good relationships with India. As far as this recent COVID-19 crisis is concerned, India is among those countries which are providing various important drugs to different countries who are suffering from this pandemic. So this all is pointing towards the fact that India has now greater say in world affairs, which basically is one result of our status as not only a developing economy but as a fast developing economy. So we are not just a developing economy, but we are a fast developing economy, and that is what is providing us this enhanced status in the world affairs. So these are all basically can be considered to be proof of the fact that India is a developing economy. So that discussion now concludes Unit 2 for us. We very soon will be having a test, so please be ready for that. And once the test is over, we'll move over to Unit number 3. Thank you very much for your time. Please do keep supplementing the discussions here in this particular mode of education on whatever we are discussing here through these kind of YouTube video lectures. Please keep supplementing the discussions here with whatever you are reading in the newspapers and various current affair magazines, because ultimately that is only going to differentiate your answers from the other answers, and that is what is going to fetch you marks. So please keep supplementing whatever we have discussed here with whatever you are reading in the newspaper.